Hello, David. How's it going?
Hey, Bart, thanks for having me.
So where'd this one played out of?
So this is a 10-10-20 out of Parks.
10-10-20 at Parks. And what's the max buy-in? Is it 3,000?
It's a 3K cap. It's a 10-10 game, but the 20 is all but mandatory. Very few players break that sort of protocol.
Right. And this is one where they get a lot of games, right? I remember
It's on
that.
a Tuesday. I only play this game on Tuesdays because they get so many. They'll get a good bit on Fridays as well, but on Tuesdays, the dynamic is they'll also run higher games like a 10-20-40 and sometimes a 50-100 or some big Plo games.
Mm-hmm.
So for that reason, Tuesdays is sort of where I target my mini shots at this.
Sure. So this is a little bit of a shot for you.
I played maybe 20 times in it, but I'd say 80% of the time in this room I'm playing 2-5.
Okay. So you probably definitely know Michael G. All right. So 10-10-20. So 10-10 plus 20 at Parks. Okay. And how deep are you?
I am the effective at 2,400.
All right. So 2,400 effective. Okay. Go ahead.
All right. So MP, who sat down about an orbit ago, bought in close for the max. He raises to 50. Pretty standard raise.
Okay.
Folds to me. I'm in the big blind or the middle blind with Queen of Clubs, 10 of Clubs, and the straddler calls.
So Queen of Clubs, 10 of Clubs, and you call in the middle blind. Is that right?
Yep. This was a little bit of a later raise. I'm 3-betting with a decently high frequency. If it was the cutoff for the button, for the original raiser.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that would sort of broke the tie for me is the straddler is pretty loose passive. One of the guys I probably have a bigger edge on than most others. So I didn't mind getting involved with him, and I wasn't overly worried about a high squeeze frequency from him either.
Well, I would think about this a little bit. I mean, that is what you said at the end there is true for sure. Like, one of the reasons why you don't want to call here in the middle is because you kind of get squeezed to your left, although you don't really see that a ton in live play. But I just take a couple small exceptions to what you said. I would actually be thinking about this more where I would do more calling here and less 3-betting if the guy who was in the straddle was pretty tight, because I don't want to take this hand out of position multi-way. I would much rather be heads up because it's just so hard to realize. So I think if I have a guy to my left that I think is completing a ton, especially with the given pot odds, it would probably make me more apt to 3-bet more. The second part of this is that, yeah, we like to get mixed up with people that we think are like big fish at the table. But remember, he doesn't have the preflop lead. It's not like you're going after the tight range of this guy that you want to get involved with. He's just completing. So if he's completing like a really wide range, there aren't many situations where you're going to win a big pot off of him to your left, who's not the preflop raiser with Queen 10 of clubs, if he's completing with like 60-70% of hands. You know what I mean?
Yep, that makes sense. This is why we call.
Okay.
Why we call in, I mean.
Right. So the pot's like 150 and change or something like that?
Yeah, 160 with the small blind in there.
Okay.
Flop is 3 of spades, 4 of diamonds, 10 of diamonds.
So 10 of diamonds, 4 of diamonds, 3 of spades, and you've got Queen 10 of clubs for top pair in the middle blind. Okay. Yep.
I check.
Mm-hmm.
Straddler checks. MP bets 100.
So MP 100 into 160. Okay.
Yep. I call. Straddler calls.
Hero calls. Straddle calls. And I think that's obviously pretty standard. I just want to ask you, like, at what we talk about sometimes, and I don't know how often you see very, very small bet sizing. One of the things that you can do, because there's people don't find enough check raises a lot of times in live poker. One of the counters to that, if you have the pre-flop aggression, is that you can actually continuation bet with like that small sizing, with a much more of a volume of different boards, because people aren't finding the check raises. The reason why I bring that up is, at what point would you ever consider, I'm not saying I would consider it at 100, but like at what sizing might you consider starting a check raise here? What if the guy had bet like 40?
Yeah, which would have been a little bit more standard. So if he goes 40 or 50, I'm trying to work more check raises into my game here. So Queen 10 is a little bit too strong, a little bit too weak, if that makes sense. But I would try to find some like 8, 9 of diamonds, 5, 6 types of draws, as well as maybe my strongest tens. Although I do have a bit of a bigger than average donking range as well that I've been working in. But to answer your question, if he goes a 30 or a 40 or a 50 and I have one of those, I would consider check raising.
Well, of course, with the combo draws, I was talking about like with 10x, but okay, that's a fine. And I think we all agree.
Strongest 10. Ace 10, king 10, maybe I'd throw into that.
So 100 and a call, and now so you're putting through 460 here, right?
460.
Okay. Yep.
So turn, very interesting. Queen of diamonds.
Okay. So again, just to repeat, hero called in the middle. It's a 3-blind configuration. MP to 50. Hero calls with queen 10 of clubs in the middle. Straddle calls 10 4 3, 2 diamonds. Check. MP 100. Hero calls. Straddle calls. Turns the queen of diamonds. So it brings in the front door. And hero now makes top 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think about a check and a lead. I think there's merits to both, and we can go into that whatever order you want. I do check.
Okay.
Straddler checks.
Mm-hmm.
MP bets 160.
160. Interesting. That's weird. Would you ever take that sizing? I see that Nate here, again, a lot of my content creators are way more in the solver streets than I am in terms of using the tools like on a daily basis. But I learn from the outputs. And I'm thinking out loud here because I do wonder if this is somewhat of like a deviation here for this sizing. I mean, it's hard to think about this like in a multi-way situation, but I would think that you would almost want to either check or polarize here if you were the pre-flop raiser. Like unless I had so little respect for the guys that were in the blinds and I wanted to make a huge deviation and just think, oh, I'm going to, make like a sort of a live bet, we'll call it, of 1/3 just because these guys aren't check raising and they'll just call down. But I wonder if that's a thing because it doesn't seem like it off the top of my head when the high diamond, because I mean, he's got a lot of bluff card things here too, right? Like ace king with a diamond. It's just kind of weird. 160 multi-way. So I wouldn't have expected that. Just thinking out loud. For you, it is interesting. Obviously, people in the live chat thinking about whether you would donk or check. I mean, I think I might do more donking heads up as opposed to 3-way, just in terms of like sheer hand strength, and the straddle has to have something. So I think a check might be okay. It's just really weird, this sizing, because you would think, oh, well, you're going to, if the pre-flop raiser bets again here on the turn, you're just going to, it's just a check call. But again, I wasn't expecting this kind of sizing here of 160.
Yeah, it's a small sizing. I had 3 reasons for checking. So one, because both opponents could have flushes, but I think there's a lot more combinations of the straddler having it than MP, right? 2 broadways are accounted for. So there's only three hands of that left, plus some suited connectors. My thought in real time for checking was, if the straddler somehow backs into diamonds here, he's a pretty straightforward player. I'll find out and play accordingly. I think MP has a lot of double barrels here with overpairs, 2 overs with a diamond, a lot of that stuff, although I definitely expected a bigger bet. And then the third reason is I have top 2, but it's on a flushed board, right? If this is a queen of hearts or whatever, I would want to lead more with the effective nuts or near to it.
Well, our buddy Josh Shepard, who I think is called in many times before, says he likes to donk because of the fish in the middle. And that also has some merit. So I'm a little torn here. I don't think it's like an always donk, always check. I think it's probably pretty close. I'm more torn with the reaction to this guy's sizing. And I'll ask you the same question. At what point would you check raise? Even if you didn't have a plan to check raise, at what sizing do you start to check raise this turn? When this guy goes 160 into 460, what if he bet like 80? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I did have a check with a plan of check raising at a decent frequency. Again, depending on what happens. If straddler leads out,
oh, right. Okay.
Probably shutting down the check call.
Right.
But given what I said about MP, it's a fairly aggressive game. I think he's double barreling with hands that are not there yet, as well as still continuing with overpairs, certainly with the diamond, although sometimes they'll check back to realize some equity, maybe. So I did check raise. My sizing I don't like. I think it's small. I went to 400.
Well, that is very small.
Yeah.
It is, and the issue sometimes with this is, well, I don't know what kind of player the guy is in the middle. Like what his, I might be giving these guys a little bit too much credit, but sometimes you can get eaten alive by a good player if you were to take this sizing, and he had the ace of diamonds here. Although you do have a fair amount of flushes calling here from the middle too, and it's not necessarily like he's trying to get you off of, he's trying to not, it's not like he's trying to get you off of, obviously like he's going to try to get you off of like a small flush or something like that. But I would probably tend to go larger if I were to check raise, but I am a little bit torn on how often I would call and how often I would check raise. I don't hate the check raise. I think I probably would just go a little bit larger here.
Like
Like
600?
500, 550, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So I go 400, Straddler folds.
All right. So that guy folds, straddle folds. And that's funny too. Similar to the previous live stream caller. Like if the straddle cold calls in between, it's kind of weird, right? Because if he's really fishy, he might actually be calling with just a draw. But I think you run out of value. Let's say you check raise straddle or cold calls, the other guy gets out of the way. You probably run out of value at the end on a brick. Like you maybe go into a check call. You hope it goes check at the end, right?
Well, not only that, but how many bricks are there on the river, really?
Well, any low offsuit diamond, right? I'm saying if the straddle cold called in between. But okay, so straddle folds, yep.
Yeah. So Straddler folds, MP calls.
All right, so MP calls. So now the pot's 1260. And you guys have what, like 1800 left, something like that?
I have 1850 in my notes, yeah.
Okay. So 10 of diamonds, 4 of diamonds, 3 of spades, turns a queen of diamonds. You do choose to check raise here to 400 against this 1/3 sizing. Straddle folds, 1260 to the river, okay?
River, ace of clubs.
Ace of clubs. For a final board of 10, 4, 3, queen, ace with 3 diamonds. Well, that's probably not the best card in the world, that's for sure. I mean, obviously a 4th diamond would be much worse, but still not a great card here. And I think what saves, here's my first inclination as I remember this. I think what will, and I think it definitely should be played as a check here. And I think what saves you a lot of times here is if the opponent did have like a hand like ace king of diamonds, or ace king with the ace of diamonds, ace king with the king of diamonds, ace jack with the ace of diamonds, you know what I mean? Something like that. Again, pretty unorthodox turn sizing. If you check, a lot of guys don't find the bluff here, or they just think they have enough showdown value anyways. They're not going to turn, a lot of guys aren't going to turn ace X into a bluff here. And again, not off the top of my head, I don't know how often ace of diamonds actually be turned into a bluff here as a single pair, maybe some of the time. But when that comes into play, the general live population bluffs less or turns pairs into bluffs less often, like top pair, then you can actually do more check folding here at the end. That's what I think off the cusp. I think we all agree that probably should be a check here from you.
Yes.
Yeah. So here are checks.
I agree with everything you said. I did check. One question though before I get to the action, because there's a decent chunk of his range that is the ace king with 1 diamond potentially as a small bet call range on his turn. Is there any merit to a small block bet to get value from that?
You mean like, yeah, I saw somebody in the live chat here, 250, 350, Ryan.
Exactly. I was thinking 300. I thought for maybe 15 seconds before I checked, but I was briefly thinking about a block bet.
I mean, block betting, like I said, I've talked about block betting before. You have to be able to get called by worse for a block bet to be right. Now, I don't know what kind of player this guy is, but it would be, if you put out like 250, 300, something like that, ace king with a diamond it almost should never be good, but you would be getting something like 5 to 1. I mean, you open, or he would be getting something like 4 or 5 to 1. Again, it's a situation where you might open yourself up to being bluffed. Same situation that I said that you can check and you might open yourself maybe up to being bluffed too. The only thing I would say is that if you block, you actually might increase a bluffing frequency, where if you check, you'll see more of a reflection of a check behind. But if you block, maybe that opens the door for a guy to bluff raise you. So that's the absolute disaster when blocking, is if you induce a play that blows you off of the best hand, it blows you off of your equity, when that wouldn't have happened. You know what I'm saying? If you didn't block.
Totally. Okay, perfect. So my thoughts exactly. Excuse me. I check. He thinks for about 20 seconds and announces 900.
So you do check, you don't block, and now the MP bets 900. Yeah, I think I fold here. I think I fold, and I don't think it's close as played. But for the reasons I've already said it. I already said it before you spoke, and it's just you're not inducing a bluff by making a block. And I think in live play, like ace king, ace jack with the ace of diamonds just checks back here a lot. You know what I mean? So it's just what is he bluffing with here? Or he's not taking anything worse for value. There is no worse for value, right? I mean, you've got queen 10. So you have a bluff catcher. And if he's not turning ace X into a bluff, then I find it very, very difficult here to call. As I look on the surface, 10, 4, 3, queen, ace. I mean, that's kind of my take. What did you do?
I did fold for everything you said. The only potential, maybe.
Kings with the king of diamonds. People are saying kings with the king of diamonds here too.
That's the one that made sense, sure. But okay. But even kings with the king of diamond beats, weird single queens that I back into on the turn. So I don't know. Maybe 100%, but value versus bluffs, sure. One bluff combo, maybe two if it's a jack of diamonds, with a package of jack of diamond, but it wasn't enough for me to justify.
And and you're saying also too, like a little bit of a live tell, you're saying he said 900 and he didn't even really even put chips in there?
Correct. He verbally announced it after I tanked, because I did tank for long for me. He did obviously eventually put the chips in, but he announced it without making any movement whatsoever.
Yeah, I have in my experience, like that tends to be a little bit more of a show of strength from what I've seen. But again, if this guy if he's been around for a while, he could be throwing in some sort of reverse type of tell as well. But interesting hand. Thank you very much, David. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bart.